Welcome back to the Carrot and Stick podcast, a podcast series where we look to get under the skin of all things sales, performance management, and motivation to understand what makes our wonderful world of recruitment tick. Today, I'm sitting down with Elliot Dell, the CEO of Salt Recruitment Group. Very good chance you've heard of Salt. They're quite a known brand in the industry, and for good reason. Elliot is a really inspirational guy, not just being the CEO of Salt, but also sitting as a board trustee for a number of schools, being a life coach, and so many other things that I could list out. I'll be here all day long. Today's conversation is really interesting because we dig into a whole range of areas, from Salt's relatively unique expansion model to have a number of offices around the world, his thoughts on social media and why founder-led branding is such a key thing for him, and finally, a topic that is very, very present in seemingly every conversation today, AI. We dip into a few other areas as we go, but those are the main parts of the conversation, and I know you're going to love this one. So let's get into it with Elliot Dell, CEO over at Salt. Elliot, absolute pleasure to have you on today, my friend. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you, Derry. How are you?
I'm very, very good, thank you. And I imagine I'm about to become a hell of a lot better over the next 45 minutes or so. We've got a lot to get through today. But for those who don't know who you are, who don't know who Salt are, give us the intro, give us a spiel. Who are you and who is Salt?
Yeah, so I'm Elliot Dell, CEO of Salt Recruitment Group. We are a global digital recruitment business. We launched Salt in 2010. So we've been a 15-year journey. That's taken us initially in London. We're actually a collection of acquisitions and entrepreneurs and founders around the world. So we've had an organic growth and an acquisitional-led strategy. So we have business partners over in APAC that founded the New Zealand business. We merged with them in 2016. They also had a business in Asia. We have a business partner in South Africa who we merged with in 2020. Brazil 2023. We launched New York 2015. Dubai 2016. So yeah, we're a mashup and a collection of offices, but we've come together in harmony. So I drive that day to day, branching out across all businesses, focused on whether it's digital transformation, disruption, innovation. So we can work with a household name like an Adidas on their transformation. We work with the disruptors like an Uber, a Meta, a Google, and then a lot of traditional consulting and banking businesses across the world.
Fantastic. And what a succinct intro as well, I've got to say. Very, very good and to the point. I love it. One of those three topics that we were going to talk through today was around building a global business, which we'll jump on first. I think that's a really interesting one, given all you've just said. You've got a lot of thoughts on AI as well, which I'd love to get into, and then founder-led branding, because you are one of the more prominent voices that I see on LinkedIn. So those would be the three things I'd love to get into today. Still sound good for you?
Yeah, all good.
Perfect. That first one then, building a global business. Whenever I speak to, or whenever I think over the years when I've spoken to a lot of agency owners, the conversation has always been, we're expanding to the US, we're opening a single office here, maybe we'll get a second one next year. It sounds like you've taken a very different and somewhat, I don't want to say aggressive because it sounds like a bad word, but an aggressive approach to expansion where it's been through acqui-merges, right? What led to that first one happening that made this whole snowball start rolling?
Yeah, look, I guess it was a collection of things. So my business partner, Paul, and I, we'd spoken for a number of years about building something special, something that was different, something that just wasn't a classical London-based recruitment company that maybe sets up in America, maybe Germany, and then goes to market, which is probably the more efficient way of doing it if you want to build, in high net fee income regions and sell quickly. We were very passionate about building a brand and going global. So we looked at the whole globe when we were considering our growth strategy. And it was Australia that, I guess, it excited us for a number of reasons. I traveled there as a student, did the classical, graduated, went over to Australia. And when I left Sydney, I said that I want to come back to build a business. So I guess there were some passion projects behind that as well. But we were speaking with a number of people in a number of locations, but it was the conversations we were having in Australia that excited us. And it's like, well, if you're going to do it, why not do one of the hardest and furthest locations first and then work your way back in?
There's a few sayings I've heard, like eat the frog, do the hardest thing first. And you certainly have done that with going for the opposite side of the world.
Yes.
How did that work? How did that work in the early days in terms of keeping in touch with them? Because like we say, it's the other side of the world. It's opposite time zones. Like I can't imagine you want to be up at 4 a.m. having calls with them, for example. So how did you guys make that work?
So look, we had a really passionate founder, a young lady by the name of Tian, who's actually now, as we get onto the AI topic, an AI thought leader living in North America now. But she was a very passionate, hungry, determined, driven leader. So we'd speak at Sunday night as their week was starting for them on a Monday morning. I would FaceTime Tian on the way to my station every single morning. We'd catch up. And then we'd have our regular catch-ups throughout the week. We'd do sales meetings just like we would in the UK. But this was in the early days of video technology, so it wasn't always the best clarity, let's say. We didn't have a cloud-based CRM at the time as well. We were at a server-based CRM. So the poor guys in Sydney, it would take them 6 minutes to download a CV. So there were some archaic things along the way that we take for granted now with digital technology. But look, it was fun. Part of the challenge was that it was fun. We all had a lot of energy and excitement around what we were doing, and the passion drove us through the pain points.
Awesome. And were you traveling over there semi-regularly to go and see the team over there and meet up with I guess like a co-founder, in this case, or the founder of that business that you acquired? What did that look like?
Yeah, so first year I actually got over there for the first time in the Christmas, spent a few weeks over there with my family and with the team, did our first, work Christmas dinner in Australia in Darling Harbour, which was amazing, versus the cold Christmas parties that I was used to in London. So that was good fun. It was great to get the family, and that really started the ball rolling with my family traveling everywhere with me throughout the office builds and the acquisitions that we've done all over the world. And then my business partner, Paul, and we then traveled to Australia 3 or 4 times in 2015 as we started to escalate conversations about acquisitions and further growth and scoping other locations along the way as well, like Dubai and Singapore. So we really have made, a lot of people talk about, the destination, but it's, the journey along the way has to be exciting. And I think we've done that very well at Salt. We've made the journey fun.
I mean, that's one of our values at OneUp as well. It's called enjoy the journey for that exact reason. And then there's a pitch I often give to my team is, everyone thinks about that next goal. I'll be happy when I buy that car that I want, when I can afford the house, when I can go on that holiday I've always wanted to go on. And by the time you get there, you've already been thinking about what that next goal is. And so you're constantly chasing something, hoping that you'll be happy when you get there. But actually, it's the journey to get in there that you have to find joy in, I think, to really find value in what you're doing.
The journey is generally the longest part, as opposed to the destination. I'm coaching someone at the moment, and they've just, had a multiple tens of million exit within their business, and they kind of got the check, so to speak, or the money goes into the account, and it's like, what next? What do I do now? And coaching through that process of be proud of the legacy, but look ahead to the next thing. But as humans, we are all chasing that next thing. So while you're chasing, you must be enjoying.
Totally. And that post-exit life, I mean, you've probably seen it there with the person that you're coaching as well, is people can feel really lost. Like, it's something I'm hoping to go through one day, of course, but at least for now, it's something I've experienced secondhand through friends that have gone through exits or potential investors that are speaking about their journey. And those first 6 months afterwards always sound quite scary, where it's like you've had so many of your years and so much of your time and your energy is given to what is actually your baby, your business, right? And then it gets sold off and you're like, what now? Like, there's a massive void in your life that you've got to try and fill some way, and it's not an easy thing to do.
Well, this is the thing, and what I see in businesses, especially successful ones, is that a lot of heart and soul obviously goes into a business, and especially from a values point of view, you see the replication of people's values. So some of the businesses and founders we work with around the world, you genuinely see their values and their passion and heart and souls within the brand, and that's always been a delicate part for us as we've brought other businesses on board, because you want to respect that legacy for them. You want to expect that passion that they've brought along as well. And when we've merged with the business, we've never sort of laid out we have to do it like this. We've always walked into a partnership in terms of, look, what do we all do? What do we all do best? What can we create? What can we blend? What can we add in? What can we take? What can we change to make the best business together?
Yeah, I love that. And to come back to that piece around that first Australian brand, how did that come about in the first place? Did you meet by chance? Was it an event somewhere? Was it something else? Like, what happened to bring that about?
Yeah, so I was speaking with a number of people across 2013 in Berlin, in North America, and then I had a conversation with 3 or 4 people in Sydney. I noticed a couple of other digital recruitment businesses were looking at Sydney as well, so maybe there was that sort of competitive nature in me as well, thinking, well, if they're doing it, I'm gonna do it first, or I'm gonna do it better. But it was the capture of the vision. When I spoke with Tian, our founder there, that she really understood what we were looking to do, and that helicopter view that we had on digital, because a lot of recruitment companies at the time were either coming from the tech angle or the marketing angle or the creative angle, where we were looking at something in the middle, something that encompassed all of those service lines and that could really help a company go through full digital transformation.
Got it. And you semi-touched on this a little bit earlier on, but what led to that decision to go down that sort of acqui-merge path rather than setting up your own office? Because I imagine what would be the case here, there'll be some listening to this who are thinking, yeah, I really want to go international at some point. And you took a slightly different path to doing it. And they're probably listening and thinking, oh, well, I could do the same, but where the hell do I start?
Yeah, so I guess the first one was the first actual merger that we did over in APAC was accidental by nature, but the intent of acquisition came very quickly on the international journey, because I think we underestimated the knowledge base that you need to go into a new location, from compliance, currency, economics, politics, location, culture, all these different things, and also as well how different client lists are all around the world. I think there was a bit of an ignorant assumption that, oh, it's Australia, there's loads of Brits there, we'll all have the same clients, it will be really easy to cross-sell and cross-pollinate our existing customer base. But it wasn't like that at all. So there was actually another business called Salt, the business we ended up merging with, founded by a brother and sister, Sean and Jackie. Sean was living in Australia, Jackie was living in Singapore. They had a business in New Zealand, and they'd also acquired a business up in Asia. So their New Zealand business was called Salt. So it was actually through a legal letter that we found out that we couldn't be called Salt in Australia. And it all built upon from there. 2 years later, we ended up shaking hands on a deal to merge, rebrand everything as Salt, and then launch from there. And that really propelled us, because along the time, we'd opened up in New York in October 2015, and then we launched in Dubai early 2016. So in a 2.5 year period, we'd gone from one office in London with circa 35 staff to 8 offices and around 160 staff around the world.
Fantastic. And if you look back across all these mergers that you've made, or the acquisitions, the launches that you've done, what would you say the top 3 lessons that you've learned are, or the mistakes that you've had to overcome during that time?
But the legal agreements, to cut to the chase on the black and white side of things, it's having everything in place so you know where you're going and you know what you're doing. Obviously, you can build, trust and relationships from getting to know each other and sharing values and being aligned on where you're going. But it really is having the house in order, from, what the acquisition looks like, the management agreement in place, the sale and purchase agreement in place, what you're doing with systems and processes, what you're doing with names, what you're doing with operating model and structure. So it really is having the finer details of everything absolutely ironed out. I think from each one we've done, because we've done 5 or 6 now, they've all been, relatively small in size. We're talking, the largest one we did was, probably 35, 40 staff, and then, smallest one, say 5 or 6 staff at the time. But they've been strategic in terms of they've either added a new location on, or they've enhanced the service line that we have that has been a fledgling serving line, and we need to bolster the support.
Out of curiosity, did you look for a new location but playing in the similar markets that you do, so you were familiar with them, and it wasn't like you were stepping from working in the energy sector into working in, I don't know, teaching, for example? You tried to keep it in a vein that you knew?
Yeah, absolutely. And some of the businesses that we've acquired have been, they've had service lines slightly left of field, but we've had the very set vision around our digital services, which is creative marketing, sales, and technology. And then within that, we do business operations and transformation and change as well. But everything is about that digital piece.
And you guys always, before you go through acquisition, because obviously with a lot of acquisitions, what happens is a private equity firm comes along, snap up a company, and then all the changes get unveiled. Right, we're moving these team members on, we're doing this, we're changing that, we're wrapping up the pricing, we're tacking off the dev team, for example. All kinds of things like that happen post-acquisition. What you're saying is iron out all those details before anyone signs on the dotted line, so everyone knows exactly what it is they're getting into, down to the minutiae of what systems are you going to use in the business, right?
So that's what's worked for us, because we've done our acquisitions because the business has something that we want, not that we want to strip apart. Other businesses look more for an asset buy because they've got a contractor book or a client list that they feel they can add to and that they can grow. But we've gone for the people, we've gone for business partners. So we are a collection of business partners around the world that have come together for the greater good of what we're building.
Makes sense. Makes sense. And any more plans for the future to carry on that trend of what you've been doing so far?
Yeah, absolutely. We're always inquisitive. At any one time, I'm probably having 2 or 3 conversations. I say whether it's new locations or new service lines, I can't think of a week in the last 10 years where I haven't had some form of acquisition conversation in some way, shape, or form. And it's about constantly building up that list. There's a lot of great people out there. It's great to network. It's great to talk. I love peer-to-peer networking. It's almost like free coaching of each other, just a bit like our coffee session last month, Derek. We're always learning from each other. Anyone that's building a business or is passionate about something within the technology space or, within the people space, they're going to have interesting things to say. So love grabbing a coffee and learning.
Totally. And I'll ask the question, but don't feel like you have to answer if it's going a little bit too far into the secret sauce here. What kind of terms are you looking at when it comes to an acquisition? Are you looking at them to get shares in Salt? Is it purely a cash buyout? I imagine more in the early days, it probably was them wanting a stake in Salt in some way, but these days it could be a straight cash buy. The fear I always imagine there is if you got going through 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of those acquisitions, you might find yourself going down to owning a very, very small part of Salt in the end. How have you managed that?
Yeah, a bit of a combination of things. We classically look for a 50-50 model. So it is a genuine partnership. We don't go into a relationship looking to dominate it. We go into a relationship with an open playbook on what the Salt operating model has. And we have a very distinct Salt operating model. We have our pillars within that, which is our vision, our values, our universe, our CAM, which is key account management, DNA, which is our training and development methodology. So we have a playbook for what we do. We have a global CRM, global back office team. So we have all the infrastructure that a business needs coming in. So we could literally just pick up a new sales team in Sweden, as an example, where we don't have an office, and all they would need is a sales director and a sales team with them, and we could literally plug them into the Salt global infrastructure. We have the playbook for how that's done. We have a brilliant marketing team, a strong brand, so we can create that brand presence very quickly. So we open the playbook of our global key accounts into that new location. So when we merge with the business, they have something we don't have, and we have something they don't have. So, it benefits us that they're going to pick up the phone to our key accounts and say, hey, we're now in Sweden, or we're now in Finland, or wherever the new business may be. So it's about the sum of the parts creating the greater good. So we're very open with that right from the get-go. In early stages of these acquisitional conversations, I get our business partners involved and say, well, listen, they've done it. They've been on the journey. So, speak to them on the other side of the fence, and you can have the warts and all story. I'm very open like that when it comes to conversations.
Fantastic. I mean, I don't think you didn't say it. It sounds like it's very, very well managed, mate. So well done. It sounds like you're really on quite a special model here that I haven't seen done too often around the world, and it's always quite exciting to hear about. And it's not just in this aspect that clearly you're a bit of a leader in that aspect. It's also on things like social, LinkedIn, right? I see you. The algorithm clearly believes I like you, and trust me, I do. I seem to see your post at the top of every single feed whenever I open up my LinkedIn every single day. How long have you been building a brand on LinkedIn for, and what sort of returns are you seeing from us? Give us the overall idea of why you're so hot on this sort of thing.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess, was I an early adopter on social? I guess what I saw on social is, that ability to connect and that ability to have a voice, that ability to be transparent. And there's been many segments to my own journey that I'm very proud of. And there's been many segments of my journey that I know are challenging for many people, but it's something I can talk about very openly. So whether it's a topic about, giving up alcohol, which I did a decade ago. I remember when I first started going out, people come up to me and they're like, wow, how have you managed to do this? Especially people that grew up with me on the party scene and, worked with me out in the Greek islands or, partied with me in Vegas or Ibiza. It was a real surprise to them and, them understanding why I'd done that. So I thought it was important to have a voice. There was another side of things that I talk about is mental health. My dad, who passed away a couple of years ago now, he had bipolar. He got diagnosed in 1992, so I was 13 years old. My mum actually worked on a mental health ward as well. So I'd kind of grown up with seeing mental health and understanding mental health and hearing my mum have conversations. She was an administrator at one of the hospitals. So I would meet people that were hospitalized and you would pick up on things from an energetic point of view. And I'm big on energy. I'm big on feelings. I'm big on reading people through body language, through eye contact, through energetic levels, through words, all of these things, which is all built into my coaching methodology and things like neuroscience that I've studied. But I felt it was really important to have a voice. I have a voice, and if I can share experiences around topics that some people are afraid of, some people are uneducated around, the fact that I could provide that on a platform really excited to me to do. So that's what I've always done with social platforms. Our mission here at Salt around creating futures as well is something that drove me to get into recruitment. So I've always wanted to speak about that. I met a guy in the gym when I was 18 or 19 years old, and he was always very well dressed, polished, noticed he had Ferrari keys, and got chatting to him one day about what he did. And he said he'd sold his recruitment company. And I was like, wow,
I want to
tell
do
me
that.
about that. I think we shared this story, didn't we?
We did.
And he said he now gave career talks at colleges, inspiring kids to get into technology. And I was like, yeah, I really resonate with all of these things. I just started a university degree, and my lecturer, bless him, I loved him to bits, but he said, the reason I'm doing this job is because there was a recession and I wasn't very good at my job. And I was like, well, that's not really inspired me. And it always sat with me, but I had affection for him and the course, so I stuck it out. But it just made me want to inspire people. I even remember from such an early age, always wanting to help other kids in the class. I was blessed that I was academically clever. I understood. I got things very quickly, so it allowed me time in class to help other people. So I've always been on that journey, and I've carried that through into recruitment. So that all feeds through to why I love recruitment, why I've always loved giving great customer service, placing candidates, showing clients, beneficial ways to build out their teams and do that on a global basis. And then, like I say, share those thoughts and experiences online.
Whenever I think about two words to describe the brand for you that I see online, I always think about it's very authentic and it's very uplifting are the two words that I'd pair together, because it always feels like, like you're saying here, you think about how you operate in business and the way that you grew into the professional that you are today. It all carries through in the messaging that you tend to see from you online as well. It's not like it's some persona you're putting on there to try and appear to be someone on LinkedIn that you're not. It feels like a very real you. And I think the problem that many people have when they look at this sort of thing and think, yeah, I'd like to be present on LinkedIn. I understand the benefits that it can bring, but I don't feel like I've really got a story to say. What would your message be to people who feel like that?
Yeah, do you know what? And I see it. And, some people get criticized for, I've never used a personal branding agency. I know some brilliant people out there, whether it's Amelia Sordell, Sean at Hoxo Media, and I love meeting up with those guys and chewing the fat and stuff and learning from them, etc. But I've never had anyone write my posts or curate my content or anything like that. And you can see some people do that. And I think fair play to them. I think fair play to them to wanting to go on the journey, because there's some brilliant business leaders out there and brilliant founders out there that have done things by being brilliant with numbers or brilliant with sales or brilliant with something. But you know what? They don't have an overt presence. They don't have a loud voice in terms of being a speaker or a confident speaker. And they've got brilliant things to say. And, like with any of us, with anything, a coach is an amazing platform to help us break through those fear points and those barrier points. So I would say, whether it's getting support from someone or just, picking up that pen and having a little go, I would highly recommend, because like I say, there's loads of brilliant voices and leaders out there that I know that don't post and share online, and they've got so many amazing things to say. However, I also would say it's quite a crowded place. More of us are coming online and sharing thoughts and experiences, which is brilliant. But we do also live in a world of overload. So there's also no pressure to send. Some people build brilliant businesses without posting a thing online. You don't
Without
have
even
to.
being on LinkedIn in some cases. They don't even exist on there, right?
Exactly. There's one way of doing it. Being present and being online is just a different way of doing it. And it fits in with me. It fits in with my style and my voice, and my premise of creating futures. I sit on the board of a trust for local schools in my area. I coach kids football. So everything for me in some way, shape or form is about creating futures. And that authenticity piece is something I use a lot within my coaching methodology, because that's the thing that I always aim to be, my authentic self. And it's not have these different hats, because I have been the person that's kind of had the work persona, and then how I've tried to be at home, and then how I've been in groups of circles, especially growing up, playing football. I guess that, locker room banter you get caught up in. So, as a male on a journey, you get caught up in different styles and having to be different things, and, showing that you're tough and showing you're okay and not being vulnerable in certain situations. Whereas I feel I've been able to evolve as my authentic self, and that's just who I am in every forum.
Nah, and it carries through, mate. Everywhere I see it, I always think about it too, which is always really good to see. To kind of link on what you said there a second ago, you spoke about coaching, and one final wrap up piece on the social media side of things. The one thing I've seen recommended a few times is, if you don't want to go as far as getting like a personal branding agency or paying someone a lot of money to help you with the LinkedIn side, is being able to sit down with a friend and just talk about all the kind of things you've done over the last week. What meetings have you had? What interesting conversations have come about? What have you been up to? And as you speak to someone about those things, they'll often say, "Oh, that sounds quite interesting. Tell me more about that." And just noting down these little ideas of things that people say, "Oh, that sounds quite interesting. I'd like to know more about that." Those are things that can turn into posts very, very easily, because there's always learnings in every conversation that you have. Like, I could go and write 5 to 10 posts off the back of this podcast, because there are so many things that we've spoken about that are really interesting. Not saying I'm going to, but I could if I really wanted to push on it and make it kind of an extra layer deep, or go along to another podcast or another webinar and listen to what they're talking about and write a post off that. There are so many ways that you can do it that don't involve you having to pay someone a hell of a lot of money to help you do this stuff. It can just be with a friend who's in a similar space, right?
Listen, it can be. And I think what you've just exemplified there is the power of journaling. We all get caught up in a very busy life, in a busy world. And, you sit on the train, and, you see people, they're probably checking emails or scrolling online or playing some sort of game online, where that's really useful creative thinking time. And I had someone that worked for us here at Salt many years ago, and they didn't have the most open creative side about them. So we started blocking out half an hour on his train journey home on a Friday to, have creative thinking time. It really helped elevate his thinking and his creativity. So it's really important that we do have time to think about what we're doing day to day. We get caught up in everyone else's experiences, our friends' Facebook posts and Instagram stories, and, what Stephen Bartlett's doing posted on LinkedIn. So we get so caught up in everyone else, but actually what we're doing and our journey is really powerful and really interesting. So actually, if we invested in that a little bit more, we might grow a little bit more self-belief, a little bit more self-love, and, be a little bit closer to our own dreams and goals, rather than watching other people fulfill theirs.
Doom scrolling, as we call it, right? You sit there and you can lose hours just scrolling through crap. It's always a problem. But we'll move on from social media, because you mentioned, and I wanted to come on to this anyway, you mentioned about coaching. Now, you and I obviously met a few weeks ago, and we had a good talk about this, and I thought it was really, really interesting what you do. As kind of like the spiel, I guess, is that you do life coaching. You help out various people with various areas of their lives and help them to become a better person, because you've gone through a similar journey yourself. How did you get into doing that? What does it look like?
So I guess about 11 or 12 years ago, as we started to piece out the business, people started approaching me saying, I see you built this cool brand here at Salt, tell me how you've done that. We were winning awards for the website, not that they were anything to do with me, but it was giving the attention to the brand and what we were doing. But the brand became my passion project, in terms of, I always wore that CMO hat and wanted to be a big part of that. And that's when I started speaking passionately about the Salt brand online and what we were doing. So it was that early engagement and content that I was posting that would, I guess, bring incoming traffic. So when I had sort of friends or, acquaintances that were setting up businesses, they would often come to me, and someone turned around to me one day and said, Elliot, you should do this. Like, this is what you should do. You have so much to offer in terms of advice. So I guess there was a bit of an accidental fall into it initially. And then in 2016, someone in South America approached me. They said, I've seen the Salt brand. I see what you're about, what you're building in terms of Salt digital globally. I want you to be my mentor. I want you to be chairman for my business. And it just kind of elevated from there, really. And then during COVID, more and more people were reaching out. And then I think, as the world started awakening, more people wanting to give up alcohol, people wanting to, look more into mindfulness, people, becoming less afraid to talk about self-care and self-love, all topics that I'd been posting about. I'd get people approaching me, whether it was old school friends, old business acquaintances, complete strangers, people from all over the world. I had an intro call with a lady in South Africa yesterday who has her own recruitment business and has been following my posts, etc. And, wanted to explore a coaching relationship there. So it's been far and wide. I've probably had inquiries at some point from every continent, and obviously can't facilitate even 10% of the requests that I get. Hence some of the conversations we've had that we probably won't go into today.
I mean, linked to it, we'll come to it a bit later on for sure. What I love about it is it's not something that you've stumbled across and thought, oh, there's a great chance to make money here, for example. Actually, it links so well back to what you're talking about earlier. Even as a kid back at school wanting to help people, it just links back into the same thing, but being able to do so on a more dedicated basis, which is wonderful because it all aligns around the mission that it sounds like your life is engineered towards is all about wanting to help people.
Yeah, and when I first started doing my life coaching qualifications 8-9 years ago, whenever it was, I started to bring a coaching methodology, which I guess I've always had as a leader anyway. I started bringing more structured approaches, and we were using some external approaches as well. But something I certainly found out early on is not everyone wants to be coached. In fact, some people are terrified of it. And I just thought, wow, everyone would want to be coached. Everyone would want to go through this methodology. But that wasn't the case. Because, on some of the coaching courses I did early on, it said, offer your services for free, build up a reputation, build up some clients, etc. So again, I started doing that to approach businesses in the industry that I may want to acquire. And again, other business leaders, MDs, CEOs, founders didn't always want this sort of approach. So I thought, okay, the approach needs to come to me. So I'm going to talk about all the things that I love doing. And if people come to me off the back of that, then that's brilliant because it's me being my authentic self. And I believe energetically that you bump into the right people if you pronounce who you are and you are authentic.
Interesting. It's so spot on as well. The coaching thing is a really interesting one. And I think about the conversations I've had with leaders here at OneUp as well around when people are ready to develop in their careers or develop as people and those that are actually happy where they are right now and have got something else to want to be focused on. People have to kind of be in the right mindset and the right time in their life, I think, to be able to benefit from that sort of thing. And I'm sure at any stage of their life, there's always some kind of coaching that someone can benefit from. But those who are then open to it, that's where it probably varies at points in their lives, right?
Yeah, absolutely. If I look at the key sort of demographic age, although that is changing, which I'll come on to, I would say that the main approaches that I would get would be males late 30s to mid 40s. And if I think about my own sort of, spiritual journey, if you like, giving up alcohol, which was 2015. So, I was 30, just turned 37 when I gave up alcohol. But, I sort of felt a change a couple of years prior to that. I actually hired a client services manager in the UK who ended up becoming our diversity and inclusion manager, Sarah De Silva. And she took me on an incredible journey. And I just learned so many things from her, from, I guess, a humankind and human culture point of view. She was from Bermuda, where there was no same-sex adoption, wasn't legal. And she was in a same-sex relationship. She wanted to adopt a child. So it was stories like that. She introduced me to the big issue. She got me into the panel of a women in tech discussion. And at the time, I remember I was on this women in tech panel, and I was the only guy there. And people were like,
"What are you doing here?"
Women in tech panel. We're like, "What's this all about?" And it's like, well, I want to have a voice because I'm speaking to women in the tech industry, and they say that feel they are being overlooked, and they are joining companies. I won't name the industry because I don't think it's right to do that. But certain industries would say we want to hire a female developer. So if they're going to join a company where you've got guys sitting there making sexist comments and talking about football all day, do you really think a woman's going to be happy there? So, you had all this random stuff going on. And again, I was really passionate about having a voice because I think at the time we were probably 80% male, 20% female. And then over the next 3 or 4 years, just from, I guess, having an inclusive mindset, we became roughly 50-50, which we still are today. So when I see companies with agendas around that space, we need to hire that type of person for that type of role. It's like, no, if you just have an inclusive culture, you will recruit whoever is attracted to your company, and that is the right people within your company. You shouldn't try and force lever a certain type of person into your company.
Oh, spot on, spot on. I'm a little conscious of time, so I won't hang around this one too much more. But I think, again, just knowing that that's a piece that's always a conversation is really good to know. And for you guys, where it's become quite a natural thing, rather than being enforced, as you say, I think about the times when I've heard people say, "Oh, like you say, we're looking for a female dev, but we need more women to join the sales team, or we need to hire more people that aren't white," for example. I hear it, and it makes me cringe a little bit because, like you say, it's the wrong reason. One, why you're trying to do it is it almost feels like you're trying to tick a box more than anything else, and realize the actual value that comes from that through being inclusive, the diversity of thought that it introduces. It's so valuable.
100%. You know, diversity of thought is powerful, and I've been in meetings where you are looking around a table where I feel like we only have one trail of thought or demographic here, and it does feel stale. You need people to mix up the meetings. Whether it's like you say, color, neurodiversity, gender, cultural background, industry, whatever it is. For me, inclusion is about everything. It's about having the greatest collection of thoughts around the table, because that is powerful. That's why I love hiring people, because you can go, right, what do I really need right now? When I hired Jenny, our marketing director, I was like, right, I want a storyteller. So I'm going to put storyteller into the Boolean search. It was also during COVID, and I wanted someone that lived near me. So I put a 5-mile radius from my house. I was so specific about what I was looking for. And that's the exciting thing about hiring. And that's the exciting thing about looking for inclusivity, to get a new way of thinking sat around the table with you.
It's a key thing I'll probably touch on there, because you said the word at the very end of the list of things you're going through is industry. Because I think many hear of diversity and inclusion and assume that always means, not the same skin color as me, not the same gender as me, not the same sexual alignment as me, all these different things. It's more than that. It can just be diversity of experience as well. If I look at, for example, our business, we've got people who have worked in recruitment. We've got people who have worked in the music industry. One of our leaders now used to be a teacher before she joined us. There is such a range of experiences and thoughts people have got. And it's not all experience that comes from your upbringing. It can be also from career experience at the same time. Whereas I could have gone out there and said, right, all we're going to hire is people that have only ever worked in software companies. And you can imagine the kind of echo chamber that creates around the best way something should be done, rather than introducing different ideas from different perspectives. So that's a really key one worth stressing as well. It is about more than just the characteristics that you might see on a protected characteristics list in a HR document somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. Inclusion is inclusion about all things. And that's where I've sort of had to call up in certain meetings where I've sat around a table and it's meant to be about inclusion. And for 5 minutes, we've spoken about how many women each company's got. So I've said, are we here to talk about, an agenda of gender, or are we here to talk about actual inclusion? Because it's the inclusivity that will attract a wide range of people. But yeah, I think that, the world is evolving in that space. And I think, COVID was a real fuel for that point, because it created that open platform. Talking about social media platforms again, I guess more people than ever had a voice about lots of different things, and it brought lots of topics, out in the open.
It did. Big time. Big time. And speaking of, one of those that obviously has blossomed a bit more recently, I'd say, has been the whole AI thing. Like, we were at a dinner at the end of January together, and AI was probably the most dominant conversation topic in the room. And truthfully, coming into that, I thought all we've heard about for the last 9 months has been AI. I'm sure everyone will be sick and tired of it, and there'll be a different thing people want to talk about today. But no, it was still very much the dominant conversation piece, and remains that way today. What's your take on it? As someone that's got this very forward-thinking view and is very, very aware of the market, what's your perspective on AI and its place in the recruitment world?
So, look, as recently as this week, LinkedIn just released a survey of the 15 most in-demand skills across their platforms. And obviously, LinkedIn have a huge amount of data to be able to assess that through. The majority of the skills were human-led skills. They were relationship building. It was cold calling. It was emotional intelligence. It was all of these different things. And I was sat on an AI talk a couple of years ago at Cogex, and someone there who was actually building like a sort of, I guess, lifestyle assistant coaching type AI platform, was talking about the fact that how with the use of AI, companies are going to be able to focus more on the emotional intelligence skills, because AI can automate all of the easy tasks. And that's really accelerating my own personal use. I'm having to go to less departments and less people to produce something that I want that might have previously had a 24 or 48-hour lag time because I've asked a department for something. That person might not always be there, or they might be busy. So me getting that thing back, and I like to work at pace. I get itchy fingers, itchy feet. I need to be moving around. I can't be in the same place for too long. So now I can literally, with AI, if I've got an idea wherever I'm sat in the world, I can run that idea through AI. I've trained my AI platforms as well to know everything about what I'm doing. So in those sort operating model, I stick in, all my latest sort of board numbers and how the business is doing and where we're going and what we're doing, the ideas that we have for our sales launches and topics. So it's very intelligent around Salt and what we're doing and what I'm personally doing. So any new idea I get or any proposition that I get, I can very quickly sense check with everything that the AI platform knows about Salt. So I'm a massive fan of AI. It's brilliant. And to be honest, my whole recruitment career, going right back to Boolean searching in 2004, it's all centered around computer intelligence. It's all centered around how can a computer platform in whatever shape or form help the human do what they want to do as quickly as possible. And, that whole premise, it's like mathematical formulas. I've got a very mathematical mind. I love maths at school, studied maths A level. So when I learned about sort of Boolean searching and algorithms, it excited me as to what the potential of this was. And, the AI we have access to now with readily available tools like Gemini and ChatGPT, we're able to accelerate what we can do. We're able to accelerate our learning, write business plans, architect, new ways of thinking, challenge ideas. So, everyone needs to get on board with it because it's going to be on every single job spec. And we went through the same revolution, 10, 12 years ago when every job was becoming digital. I remember sitting with a CMO of a very renowned newspaper publication and them saying to me, yeah, this digital thing, it's going to be a bit of what we do, but it's not going to, take us away from the traditional premise of what we do. And I think 18 months later, that person was made chief digital officer of that publication. Every job needed to have digital on there. If you were a marketing professional, creative, a technologist, you had to have digital on there in some way, shape or form. For me now, that's the same with any job now, whether you work in creative marketing, tech, sales, supply chain, procurement, HR, you need to understand how AI is impacting your industry and your role. And you need to be able to talk about that fluidly. And the same for employers. It needs to be on job specs as well. So people understand that that's part of your transition as well, because it is going to be.
Do you think there's a bit of resistance maybe from those that are not so technically inclined, to put it very, very politely, or as politely as I can, for those who aren't particularly so au fait with tech? There's fear on their side of things that they need to learn how to use this thing that they don't truly understand, and therefore it's like a bit of I'd rather just leave it alone and let those that know how to do this stuff go and work with it. Do you see it being the same sort of disruption to like those who are quite resistant to the idea of the internet, all those years ago when that came around as well? What encouragement or advice do you have for those that are in that spot where they're a little bit afraid, dare I say, of what the future might look like?
I think in the main, people are still going to be able to carry on their businesses and build very successful businesses, without fully adopting AI. So, I think it's going to take a much longer time. You even look at some businesses out there. I mean, as an example, Primark, we supported them in terms of building out their website a few years ago. That's still an in-store collection because they want their shop fronts, they want their stores. So there are some traditional models that break the mold of where we feel the world is going in terms of, most businesses, especially retail, will be purely online. And you look at the huge success of, the Temus and the Sheins, etc., that have just absolutely dominated markets from being online platforms. There's going to be a space, but those that can adopt it are going to be able to create efficiencies and cost savings in their business and accelerate the internal learning and development of their business quicker with AI.
Yeah, massively. I mean, I'm a big, I think we're very aligned in how we think about it as well, because the words you were just using earlier on were around it almost augment people. It's a word that I use a lot, is to say it augments people and what they can do, and it lets them focus on the human skills, the relationship things that otherwise you wouldn't see. It makes things more real. And I was speaking to someone yesterday. Actually, Nigel, who was at our dinner with us back from Tiger Recruitment. David Morrell, sorry, speaking to him yesterday about this. And I was saying to him back then that the one thing AI will never really be able to do is replace a human-built relationship. Can you imagine saying, like, I trust ChatGPT to have my back when the chips are down, I need to find a job somewhere? Probably not realistically, because to that system, you are a number. And that's where when there's a lot of recruiters, I feel, that step out and say, oh, it's going to take our jobs away, it's going to damage the market beyond repair. It's going to change the market. But I think there is always going to be a need, as you say, for some of those most sought after skills in relationship building and the things like that only a human can really provide. So rather than being afraid of it, embrace it is the best encouragement you can give.
Yeah, it's about constantly improving the service, isn't it? It's about,
Yeah.
I believe as recruiters, there should be a concierge service to what we do. The service that we provide, the amount of times that we contact. I would call my candidates every single day when I was representing them, even if it was to say, hey, how you doing? Nice to see the sun shining. Have a great day. I guess it's that sort of coaching spirit that I brought into my coaching methodology. But you look at industries that, are resistant to that change. You look at the estate agency world as an example. When all the purple bricks and the other platforms started coming up, you thought, wow, is this the end of the estate agency? But the estate agency is thriving. Yeah, it's thriving because, estate agents provide that personable approach. And, I've got estate agents literally every month they call me. I don't mind them calling me once a month. Do you want a free valuation? Can we come around? And that's cool. I'm all right. They don't phone me every week. They don't phone me every day. But they're providing a nice service. We'll come and do this for you. I say no. They say it's okay. We'll call you back another time. So if you're treating customers in the right way, they will want that human interaction. It's only going to be us that forces people to only want to deal with AI if we start providing a rubbish service. And,
Totally.
we start overloading ourselves and, spreading ourselves too thin so that we can't call candidates back and we're not giving clients the best service. So I think if you're focusing on customer retention and excellent customer service, then you're going to retain that customer base through people.
The thing I always laugh at is when you think about what's in the name of a recruitment consultant, that second word, consultant, is exactly where you're able to spend more of your time with something like AI being able to help you. You can be that consultant, whether it's to a client and informing them on trends in the market, things that you're seeing being a consultant, or whether, like you say, it's being more of a coach to your candidates and making sure they feel supported and they trust you. That's what this will let you do. It will let you be a real relationship builder. So you're going to see those that have got those genuine people skills, I think, absolutely thrive in the years to come when that 80% of your job that is today formatting CVs, putting admin into your CRM, writing out emails, building up lists. Yeah, most of that should go away. Fingers crossed, should go away so we can focus on that human aspect again. And I'm really excited to see when that day comes around.
Should go away. However, the angle I look at on those things, those are the things that give you the wisdom to be a great recruiter, right?
Mm-hmm.
If AI is doing everything for you and you haven't done those things, great leaders have done everything from the ground up. They know how all components of that business work. So yes, it should absolutely enhance it. But I think if recruiters, stop formatting CVs and reviewing CVs and reading the CVs and literally rely too much upon the AI, then they are muting their own human touch on that process.
Very, very true. I think it's more the task of things like formatting a CV, so making sure it's ready to go to a client will be the thing that's best avoided. In fact, there are tools on the market today. There are quite a few out there now that do this well. They'll take a CV and format it with your company's branding, make sure it's there. But I think you've got a key point there as the one thing to remember is don't forget to then read the CV yourself and make sure it's the right one that you're sending over and not trusting a machine entirely. It's kind of a trust, but still verify would be the recommendation with anything that AI tries to do for you.
Yeah, agreed.
Spot on. Well, as we come towards the close of time here, mate, last couple of questions for you. Again, you're quite a big thought leader on LinkedIn. Where do you go for your inspiration and learning? Who do you take ideas from?
Yeah, so look, I've got good friends, peers that I catch up with, and share ideas. As I said earlier, I love getting out for a coffee. My wife is a huge inspiration to me. She runs her own yoga business. She studied psychodynamic counselling and psychotherapy. So I guess we've had a sort of side-by-side journey in terms of our own journey as leaders, running businesses, the spiritual journeys we've been on, the connections that we have together. And my kids are hugely, hugely inspiring. Watching them day to day and the passion that they put into their dreams and goals fuels me every single day. So I'm very easily motivated by the community that I have around me. You know, the kids that I coach, the people within Salt that I work with day to day, my business partner Paul. Yeah, we've got great leaders around the world. You know, we all chat together, you know, if not every day, every other day, sharing ideas, sharing experiences. So it's about surrounding yourself with good people day to day. You know, I don't have any dark communities, if you like. I don't, you know, have anywhere. I don't have anywhere I go that's not full of light. You know, I surround myself with the right people and the right energy, and that's a constant driver for me.
I love that. It comes back to that word I said earlier about the brand that I seek and review, which is uplifting, and it very much kind of lies with that as well. What about books or podcasts? Anything you'd recommend, anything that you listen to or consume, things that you've read recently that you think others should put the nose into as well?
Yeah, so I'm not massive into podcasts because when I'm in the gym or on the move, I like to hear what's going on. I like to be mindful, and I don't find listening to a podcast very mindful. It's just my own opinion. So I never listened to the Diary of a CEO podcast, but the book is incredible. Anyone building their own business or wanting to learn from a marketing genius, which Stephen Bartlett is, Diary of a CEO is incredible book. Got other books, Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning, incredible book. And I'm a massive geography enthusiast, hence the global passion here at Salt. So Prisoners of Geography is an incredible book as well. So yeah, they're my top three.
Fantastic recommendations. Awesome. Cool. I'll take some of those down for myself. And if you could get any one message or learning out to people that are in a similar spot to you, maybe 10, 15 years back, who are getting themselves going with their business and looking for that next step, that next breakthrough, what advice or learning would you share with them?
Yeah, you have to write everything down that you want to do, from your business operating model to your exit plan, your values. Everything needs to be written down. I think, you know, speaking about AI is brilliant because we don't have to store everything in our brains. You know, we can get it onto machines, we can evolve it into plans and organize it, and it's brilliant. The importance of writing things down, and especially with the AI assistants now, you know, it's easier than ever. You can plug your values, plug your business plan, your ideas, and everything into AI, and you can formulate that into one document. You know, I've always been obsessed with my business plans, you know, from the early ones that were purely on Excel spreadsheets. I would look at them literally hourly. It's like ingraining myself in that vision, tuning myself in. And I'm the same day to day now using AI. Anything I'm working on, any business plans that I'm working on, constantly optimizing them and evolving them, sharing them with the team, sharing ideas. But yeah, write everything down. And that comes from self and things that you want to achieve. But, you know, whether it's fitness, you know, health, lifestyle, well-being, you know, relationships, whatever it may be, write those things down, and the same with your business as well.
Spoken like a true coach, Elliot. I love it. Well, as we round things out, if anyone's got any questions they want to reach out to you, where's the best place to get hold of you?
LinkedIn, although that can be quite a crowded place. But yeah, if anyone wants to message me on LinkedIn, I do try my best to get through all the messages there or comment on one of the posts. And, you know, I try and get back to as many people as I can.
Fantastic. Well, this has been a wonderful episode. Went into more topics than I expected to, but that's the best thing about conversations, is they flow quite happily, right? It's been a pleasure, mate, and look forward to doing this again another time. Thank you so much.
Cheers. Thank you. Have a good day.